I'm Stephen with AlbertaUrbanGarden.ca. Welcome to my garden. It's the middle of January, and I wanted to address composting in the winter here. It gets very, very cold here in Zone 3, and you'll notice that my compost pile has not gone down. That's because the entire thing is frozen, which is absolutely fine. Today's episode, we're going to make some compost using our household scraps and some free things that you can pick up in your community that will continue to enhance your soil and make your garden just that much nicer. So our first feed stock is residential scraps. This is my compost bucket. I just picked it up from a local hardware store. It's got a carbon filter on the top, so even if a little bit of stinky stuff gets in here, it doesn't really impact it. And what we put in here is, cut ends from peppers and paper towel, coffee grounds, and that's some such. What you really want to avoid though is things, dairy products, meat, things that are just really, they need a hot compost, a really hot compost, a mechanical breaking structure to get them broken down. In your residential one, you're just not going to be able to do that. And you really want to avoid attracting pests like mice and birds and stuff, which those products definitely will. The second feedstock we have is coffee grounds. Now that's that bin over there, and we're just going to cut to my good friend at Second Cup, and we'll chat a little bit more about this free resource here in Alberta. So I'm here at Second Cup Coffee in Fort Saskatchewan, and I'm here to pick up some coffee grounds from the owner Tamara here. So I'm very excited that this is a locally owned establishment, and they're willing to give me some of their coffee grounds. So I'd like to ask Tamara the other types of composting that she does to see what types of great things that locally owned businesses can do in your community. So Tamara, what kind of composting do you do?
Well, composting, we do recycling, and we recycle all of the cardboard that comes into our facility. We also, any of the milk containers, any of the plastic containers, they all get recycled. Each week we take them in. And any of the packages that our muffins come in, which are plastic, we don't have a recycling facility for us or a bin for it here at the cafe, but I collect everything and I take it home and I put it through my personal recycling through my home, just to ensure that it all gets picked up and dealt with properly, because we do get a lot that comes through here, and we don't want to leave too big of a footprint.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tamara. I do appreciate it. And the third component of our pile today is two-part, and these are from the city of Fort Saskatchewan. Thank you very much. They kindly let me take some for this particular project. Most municipalities, through their regular process, have a chipper, and they have a wood chip pile, and they also have, from their grass clippings and leaf collection, compost. This is sieved compost, and it's from their own production. There's no household stuff in here, and it is just beautiful stuff. Light, easily broken up, doesn't compact very well. This pile has been sitting all winter and was easy to shovel into. Not a problem. So we're going to get to the building the bed, and that's a little bit of a compost bed, and I'll show you how I build it. So this is the little bit of the overflow compost that I have here. This is the back corner of my garden, and the best part about the back part of my garden is not much will grow here. It just doesn't get enough sun. So what I use this for is building my soil. As you can see, I already have some dark, beautiful soil from my last year's project that I'm just going to leave in here for now. I've got a lot of beds to fill, but this hasn't quite had enough time. You can see things like cardboard, shredded paper, oranges, and coffee. Typically at fast food places, you'll get little coffee holders. Those are made out of paper. And the only kind of paper you really want to avoid is the paper that is glossy. Most paper used in newspapers, the ink is a soy-based ink, and it's perfectly fine for compost. You'll notice here now grass. This is my last fall clipping. Grass is a wonderful source of nitrogen, and it's counted as a green in the compost, and it's an easy source. I also have back here some dethatched grass that I used as mulch last year, and some of my vines from last year's garden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile this up, break up a little bit of it, and really just kind of clear the area. I guess this is one thing that won't break down. This is a stone I got from Steep Rock Mine in northwestern Ontario from my grandfather. So we're going to add our residential compost, the household scraps that I've collected over the winter, and just the household scraps. Now the benefit of using household scraps is that it diverts waste stream from your landfills, and it also increases the amount of things that are getting into your soil, so you have a nice balanced soil. So with things like oranges, I like to just break them up, make sure that they're nice and pliable, and we'll just continue to pile this on until we have a nice bottom layer here. Then comes another green resource, which is our coffee grounds. And the coffee grounds themselves are awesome. They have a low fertilizer potential, so you can use kind of a little bit of this as mulch. You want to be careful that it doesn't kind of create a cap on top here. And the filters, these are paper products. They'll break down. I've actually never seen one of these in some of my undigested compost. They break down so quickly. So what we're going to do is sprinkle this in. This counts as a green as well. But it's an awesome free resource. Lots of coffee shops. And I went to Second Cup for this. Lots of coffee shops have lots of extra stuff. And if you're worried about things like caffeine, there's when the water runs through, say this is an espresso cup or a puck, when the water runs through this, it takes all that caffeine out and puts it into your coffee. And it does that fairly quick. Typically within the first kind of soaking, it'll do that all by itself. So I'm just going to finish up putting my layer of coffee grounds on, and then we will get to the top cover and the mixing. Now we're going to put in the wood chips and the leaf and grass compost. We're not done with the residential compost. This is going to be a little bit of a layered process, but what you really want to remember is compost should be about a 50-50 split. There's plenty of information out there for the optimal split, but a 50-50 and a little bit of time, you're going to have a beautiful process. You don't need 50% of this, 50% of that. It will break down all by itself over time. This just gives you a much more rounded and nicer product a little bit faster. With this bit, I'm not overly concerned about how fast it happens, but I wanted to make sure that you were able to see the process through a season. And at the end of the year, right before snowfall, well, it's snowing today, but right before the first fall snowfall, I'll come back and dig into this pile and show you guys how I did and how this pile did. So we've got a nice top cover on there, and what we're going to do is we're just going to mix it a little bit, just on this layer and the next layer with the rest of my household scraps, just to make sure we've got good contact between the green and the brown products. If you'd like a little bit more information on what is a green and a brown compost material, I'll put a link in the description that shows some of the resources that the other YouTube community people have put together for us. And more residential compost. So we'll come back for the last step and I'll show you how to finish this off. The benefit of putting active or finished compost in this pile is it comes with all the beneficial microbes that that are needed to molecularly break down everything. So this is our house scraps from last night, and we'll put that in there. This pile should get nice and hot right away, and that's a good thing. If it gets hot for a couple of days, it'll help to kill off all the volunteer seeds that might come up out of, say, a little bit of tomato you left in there or some peppers. And it kills off the weed seeds that are often found. Once it cools down, you're more likely to get things like worms to come in there, your local worms, or some, you can release some compost worms, or if you've got the compost worms already in there, then they're going to come up through this pile and they're just going to make beautiful, beautiful worm castings. Now you'll notice this pile is quite high. It will go down quite quickly as it starts to break down and the worms start to get in there, it'll go down fairly quickly. This top cover is going to play an important role. Not only will it provide a brown ingredient, it will become a biofilter. So this process, if you can smell well, it smells like rotten kitchen stuff. When you put this wood chip and compost over it, the microbes in there will actually filter out things like methane that are causing that smell and actually consume it as part of their digestion of materials. That methane is actually a food source for them. It keeps the smell down, feeds them, and keeps your soil building nice and happy. Now, you want to make sure that this pile doesn't ever dry out. It's essential that it's not sopping wet, because then you end up with aerobic digestion dying down and anaerobic digestion building up. Anaerobic digestion means there's a lack of oxygen in the pile, and those are not necessarily the beneficial microbes that you want in there. With any luck, keeping it nice and moist will keep the worms and the bacteria, the aerobic bacteria, happy, and we should be able to get a nice compost pile going. Now, you can turn this pile a couple of times during the summer. Typically, if you're going to turn it, you want to at least get it to go through one warming cycle, cool off, and then turn it to reintroduce oxygen en masse to that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to treat it more like a stationary pile and let Mother Nature and my worm friends do the rest. So I'm just going to finish this off and I'll show you the end product. So if you ever want a great workout, move compost in your garden. So if you do have a smell problem later on, what you can do is you can either add more compost or wood chips, but a readily available source in most residential yards is grass clippings. Grass clippings, leaves, things like that. You just continue to pile them up on top. The worms will take care of them. They'll break down over time and continue to add to the pile's nutrients, but they'll also help keep the smell down. Now, if you don't want to waste any space, I've got a video on planting on raw compost piles, and I'll put a link to that right here. That's it right there. And you know, I will probably plant in this pile, and there's some squash and stuff that'll do very well. They may not actually produce fruit for you, but it'll cover the pile. It'll continue to work the roots down and bring oxygen into the deeper parts of the pile. It'll also create symbiotic relationships with a lot of the microbes down there and help continue to break that pile down over the summer. So this pile is good for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let Mother Nature give us a little bit more snow and rain tomorrow in the next couple of days, and that should nice and saturate that. I'll just keep an eye to make sure that it doesn't get kind of more than 2 or 3 centimeters or 1 inch down is moist. The top can be a little bit dry, but as long as it's moist below, that biofilter will work, and all those processes that we've been talking about will continue on and produce a nice, beautiful compost. I forgot to mention one of the other things, and I'm looking at sticks right now that I didn't mention, is sticks. I trimmed some roses in the fall. I trimmed a couple of other things. My raspberries, in a future episode we'll talk about them, but those can all go in here, thorns and all. Over the summer those will break down and there won't be any pokey bits left. So thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it very much. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us on Google+ and Facebook. Have a great day. Special thanks to Tamara at Second Cup for providing the free coffee grounds.